Pasha Pyro. Thank you for tuning. Wine at 7. Let's get this replay. So, interesting. I remember talking like from an artist perspective, and I was telling people, I'm not really focused on this. I'm focused on brand awareness, online brand presence and stuff, right? And they, some people didn't understand why then, and I was telling them that what happens in a situation like we're in today, where people are home, you know what I mean? And with the technology, that's what you have the ability to do. So I focused on that. Then we had the last 18 months, where it was more of a reality than ever before, right? So I wanted to take a time to share with you guys the possibility of that being a trend. And I have a clip from Fox News that will show to reinforce that. Because it's a great opportunity for you, because what would you make? What would you create? What do you create that you could share with others? Let's not immediately jump to monetary value, compensation, whatever. I know that's on a lot of I know everything needs a budget, let's say, right? So, but what would it be that you could create, that you would enjoy creating? Not that you could, but that you would enjoy, because you want to make sure you enjoy and have fun, what you're doing and what you're contributing to society. And what would that be? So, as you're considering that, I wanted you to consider the opportunity for creating content around that subject, that topic, for you, that whatever it may be. Because if you go back to like my song, Not Man-Made, in the undertow of that song was the preparation for, some of my thought process, some of my thoughts, my perspective of living in the coming automated society, right? So there's going to be pros and cons to everything. So with that being the case, Not Man-Made is specifying like a couple different things. And one of them was the fact that like automation, which we're racing towards, is going to create less demand for workers, right? Which means, if you look at it like this, everybody's talking about electric and autonomous automobiles right now, right? So with that on the table, I remember seeing an article some years back where it said that the auto industry itself released details that however many years ago that was, maybe like 4, it would take them 20 years to swap out all the cars basically in existence now with fully autonomous electric replacements. And whether that's true or not, let me tell you what I see as the byproduct. When you look at the world or the global GDP, right? 17% at whatever point in time was that I researched it. For the people that want to go fact check, go fact check, and then you can know what the current state is. But the equation is the same. It was a couple years ago I looked at the data, but it was 17% of the global domestic product was a driving related job. So what that tells you is that 20 years from that date of the article released from the car manufacturers, very small article, put over there, you wouldn't even pay it no attention. That 17% of the world is going to be out of a job, though, not just your city, county, state, country, the whole world. 17%, right? So as things get automated, there's going to be less of a need for workers, right? Now, you can think about that in many different ways. There's always infinity. We talk about that a lot here on YNet 7. Now, what this is positive reinforcement for is there's something in you, as I opened with, that you've always wanted to do. So if you really want to act on that, this is the best time, I think, if not, if you haven't already started, to start moving that direction. Right? And if you're into content, of all things, despite economy, what I saw is that the rows in the concrete parking lot is that if nobody had to go to work, right? And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start getting more into like the information I'll be looking at. I'm going to start sharing more of that to you. So, if nobody had to go to work, the rows in the concrete parking lot, aside from, whatever I'm not saying whatever you're going to say in the comments or in your mind is not true. It's all true. It's all part of the infinity. But the rows it would allow people to focus on, you would basically have nothing else to do but focus on your creativity and or your spiritual or religious situation, whatever that may be. Okay? But that if you didn't have to go to work for anything, that's all you had to do. I always wondered when you read those ancient stories, right? I ain't gonna say ancient, but when you read the historical stories and stuff, right? You never heard so-and-so in the story, being concerned about being foreclosed on their mortgage, right? And you had to wonder why. Like you hear the stories like how Picasso became Picasso, or somebody like that, or some historical figure, he went around the corner and spent a lot of his childhood with so-and-so master fabricator in the you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, really? So that shows you like what free networking can do for a community, right? And I know I got a little sidetracked there, but what I'm getting at is, like, if there was things like free energy, you free energy and free transportation, how much of and free, let's say, housing or shelter, what would you have to go to work for? Like if there were no bills, right? So when you look at a society, once it gets to a point in technology or a technological point in the society where the needs of the people can be met for free, right? Without cost to them. Let me just say that, without cost. I think that's when you start to talk about being a great society. You know what I'm saying? Now, that does present the opportunity for corruption like anything else, or control. But if it's done right, the rows in the concrete parking lot would be that everybody would be free to be creative. Whatever that is for them. Some people are going to still want to make cars. Some people are going to still want to try and, make whatever it is to them that they're interested in doing. They're going to do that if they have time and resources to do it, right? Which would only further advance the society, make more discoveries in science, all kinds of stuff, right? If people could just wake up and do what was on their mind. I mean, you know, within reason, right? So anyway, the point of the matter is, I was telling people ahead prior to the time frame that if everybody's shifting in the next 10, 15, 20 years to being in that position, however it manifests in reality, then that gives you time to position yourself to, you see what I'm saying? Now, what is it that you do? What is it that you enjoy to do? And when we went through the last 16 months, 18 months, it was, oh, well, you know, random, you know, whatever. I want to show you this clip here from Fox News, and I'm sure you may have seen it by now, and it's definitely probably elsewhere circulating. But now that we're looking at coming through a certain period of time that we just came through, and people's mindset are on, let's say, exploration, right? This is now on the table, and it's like, oh, to me, it's like, oh, you'll see what I'm saying in a moment here. Let's look at it here. This is the clip from Fox News, okay? Let's take a listen.
Now, for many years now, Democrats have realized that the only way to turn...
And, you know, this is for educational purposes only. This is just sharing this in the conversation, and credits given to Fox News.
Their radical plans into a reality is to
Entertainment
take more
purposes.
Power and money from the American people and give it to Washington. They want control over almost every aspect of your life.
We can't drive our SUVs and, you know, eat as much as we want and keep our homes on, you know, 72 degrees at all times.
Can't do any of those things, he said back in 2008, and all these years later, we see Obama's heirs carrying on his mission.
Now, let me pause it here for a moment to get this disclosure. Like, Pasha, I don't care about none of that Biden, Obama, Trump, whatever, right? As far as I'm concerned, they're all part of the same entity, okay? And they're all doing their thing, right? So what I want you to, the reason I say that is because I don't want you to miss what's important per out of this clip. And the reason they started with this clip is because the reason Fox started, the reason the clip we got is starting with a clip now. The reason Fox started with this clip is to position them that quote from Obama saying, hey, look, we can't like drive our cars. We can't use power, electric. We can't do this. That's why and it reminded me of the whole, you know, when you look back at the possibility that the pyramids were power plants and there was wireless electricity, you start to see why, possibly, right? You start to see why there was so much more, I don't know, creation, innovation, quality of life back then. I don't know. Everybody's got a different version of history, so I guess it really depends. But anyway, that's what I need to say. So when they start getting into this, you know, whatever. All right, I ain't got nothing to do with that. But listen to what they're saying about the climate lockdowns now and how they got there.
Control.
In the same way that we have taxed cigarettes, we're going to have to tax carbon.
We have to take combustion engine vehicles off the road as rapidly as we can.
Would you support changing the dietary guidelines?
Yes.
Reduce red meat specifically?
Yes, I would.
Now, remember, the left believes that America isn't exceptional, it's systemically racist, and that means we shouldn't be any better off than the rest of the world. So the Greeniac saw an opening when the global economy due to COVID cratered last year. Because of the lockdowns, closures, and reduced demand, carbon emissions fell by about 2.6 billion metric tons, which was a 7% drop from the year prior.
You see this?
Climate change activists who ignored or dismissed the human suffering caused by these draconian COVID rules were positively giddy. That kids were harmed from the cancellation of in-person learning and athletics was simply not relevant, given the left's larger long-term goal of reducing America's carbon footprint. So they saw COVID as an opportunity to advance the interests of a global climate bureaucracy. Their pet media marveled about the environmental benefits of lockdowns, again, ignoring human suffering.
If there is a silver lining to this crisis, it's visible in the skies above China.
All of this inaction, while causing so many humans problems, has actually proven to be quite good for Mother Earth.
Falling pollution levels brought about by lockdowns may have been shining an impact on sunshine.
Wild animals are now roaming city streets.
How do we make sure these pollution
No,
levels
they had the
don't
penguins
rebound?
crossing the street in the crosswalk.
So the longer you were behind closed doors, not commuting to work, not going to church, not traveling to see family, the happier those people were. But having a free country, individuals are making their own risk assessments according to their own risk profiles. The Greeniacs hate that. They much prefer to order you around, or if that's not possible, to frighten you into abandoning your own common sense. So mindless COVID fear-mongering kept suburban women double-masked on running trails and sent urbanites to Amazon Prime for all their grocery orders. My favorite is when they were frantically wiping down their bananas and their egg cartons worried about COVID.
The virus can live on surfaces, for example, steel and plastic for up to 3 days. We're just going to clean all the virus off here. Don't need to do too much. It's a pretty sensitive virus. For cardboard, it's typically going to be closer to 24 hours.
Of course, none of that was true, right? But he did do a good job of cleaning. But after some fits and starts, we won the COVID debate. Their so-called public health experts were wrong on everything from lockdowns to masks to social.
And like I said, stay patient. We got a couple more minutes, and then it'll close. But I wanted to show you how they got to this point, and I think it was without the variables embedded in her dialogue and the presentation, I think this was a great summary of how they went from 18 months ago to what's on the table now, and then we can tie that into why what I was saying in the beginning is such a huge opportunity for you if you know what you're looking at.
Social distancing. Those measures inflicted enormous economic, educational, and psychological harm to adults and children alike. And Biden's attempt to take credit for this notwithstanding, it was Trump who greenlit Operation Warp Speed. Yet now we see the usual suspects lining up to exploit another hyped crisis. Of course, I'm talking about climate change. And the end goal is the same. They want more of your money and your...
Now also keep in mind, I'm not saying this is what happened, but when you're looking at a project, like it's okay. When they say, hey, we noticed, like they're saying we noticed during a time period where people weren't allowed out, however they estimated or measured this, that the pollution fell by 7 billion tons or whatever it was, right? The question I have, or a good thing is in project management is the ability to measure the effects of something prior to scaling it out, right?
Your freedom. And if they have to take extreme measures to accomplish this, oh, they will, unless we're ready for them. So if we apply the lessons learned in our battle against the COVID lockdowns, I'm confident we can stop them and we can win this. Now, if you think the forces propping up Biden aren't thinking about declaring a climate emergency in some form during his first term, you haven't been paying close attention. A report released yesterday by the International Energy Agency gave us a sneak preview of what might be coming. And of course, the lockdowns gave them the perfect roadmap for how to exert control over the population. Don't take my word for it, they admit this. The COVID crisis demonstrated that people can make behavioral changes at significant speed and scale if they understand the changes to be justified. Now, will we be ordered to stay at home because of the climate? Well, perhaps not. The left is rarely that straightforward. But even without government stay-at-home orders, there are a lot of ways for the left to effectively lock you down, like through gasoline shortages, skyrocketing fuel prices, phase-outs of gas-powered cars, just to name a few. In fact, the IEAE's bucket list of climate controls includes carbon taxes, fuel taxes, limiting air travel, reducing speed limits, phasing out gas-powered cars, and many more agenda items. Doesn't that just sound grand? San Francisco, among other cities, is seriously considering implementing congestion pricing with fees as high as $14 for every car entering the city. New York and D.C. are already squeezing cars out by expanding bike and pedestrian lanes.
And you know what? That right there is something that it was like, see, the cool part is when you know what you know, and then you get that one new piece of information that just goes like, wow, okay, you know what I mean? It totally compounds what you knew, and you feel that feeling. You know what I'm saying? So you know, you a lot of you guys have spent a couple minutes looking at how they design like a park bench. I ain't gonna say a park bench, but let's say a bench on a city block to be, you know, slightly uncomfortable on purpose, so that like you don't, you know, this design so people don't loiter, or it has certain features where it's, you know what I'm saying, you can't stay there long term. They want to keep you moving. And when they said that, I was like, oh, that's totally makes sense. Like, because you're seeing the bike lanes pop up and everything everywhere, right? And then they're getting their space. I don't know what city you're in or if they're doing it in your town, but this, to some scale, I'm sure it's happening everywhere. Now, when I first saw that, I was like, you know, but when she said that, it was like, oh, because what it does do is it either creates a demand for a new space, or it takes away from the space that was existing on any of the roadways, sidewalks, paths, etc. Oh, Eureka. All right, come on.
Hawaii, they've already declared a climate emergency there. And the far left is already pressuring Biden to declare one on a national scale. AOC and Bernie Sanders introduced legislation back in February, in fact, to do just that. But we cannot let the politicians or the bureaucrats abuse their authority again. No more never-ending states of emergency, no more executive orders to shutter businesses and schools. If governors or mayors want more authority, then they should ask for the voters to approve that. You know, pass a law the old-fashioned way through the state legislature. Pennsylvania voters offer a blueprint for stopping future abuses of emergency orders by governors who, of course, enjoyed exerting their unchecked authority to shutter schools and businesses. In a rebuke of Democrat Governor Tom Wolf, 54% of voters yesterday supported a ballot question to allow a simple majority of lawmakers to end a disaster declaration at any time. Democrats and so-called public health experts use, remember, half-truths, skewed data, and outright lies to pressure states to make the drastic decision to lock down. Only 7 resisted.
This was good detail.
Only one state, South Dakota, didn't order any businesses to close during the pandemic. Georgia was the first to reopen. Then Florida and Mississippi and others followed suit. They brushed off the dire warnings and the power-mad COVID-crats. These governors put the overall interests of their residents and the long-term survival of their states ahead of the alarmism of the moment. This is the same approach that we need to take when they throw the climate hyperbole at us. As usual, if we want to see where the Democrats are going, look to Europe. In Milan, they're pushing cars out of there with bike and pedestrian lanes. Fuel taxes are being jacked up all over the UK and Europe. And France is moving to ban all short-haul domestic flights. To stop this nonsense from happening here, we need to aggressively push back at every turn, just like Pennsylvania did yesterday, just like we did with COVID, and just like we're doing with critical race theory in our schools, and we're winning that as well. The only lockdown that should happen again is of the politicians who try to wrest away liberties and hard-earned money on the bogus claim that government can solve every problem, when we know all too often government just makes matters worse. And that's the angle.
So, you know, like I said, I'm not saying like confirm or deny any allegations that was present in that clip, or any, you know, comments, any and all comments. What I wanted you to see was how we're transitioning from the current state based on the last 18 months to now. And this is not stuff that's on the table like for like, you know, oh, by 2030 or by 2045 or anything like something like that. This is stuff that they're actually looking at. When I did some more research, and then you have people suggesting that in order to meet, because it's about the reason why it's really on this climate lockdown conversation is really on the table. Is whatever the thing is called, where they have all the countries came together. I don't know if it's a French treaty or whatever. I don't know, but they came together and they said basically, you know, this is all the world can pump into the atmosphere, right? That thing they all agreed on. And quote unquote, they discovered that during this last few months, that in order to meet that agreement, that the world would need to have a similar lockdown every 2 years, was some of the reports, right? And I'm thinking, okay, so if they're looking at having a year and a half or a period of time where similar to the last 18 months, every 2 years, what's that the beginning of? You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, however that gets rolled out, okay? Even if it don't get rolled out, what is going to happen most likely in a lot of us listening in the sound of my voice in our lifetime is going to be industries turning automated. So what we have is several tributaries leading to people not going to work, right? And whatever we can have a whole nother conversation about different elements of that. What's going to be the opportunity where I came in the beginning of this is there's going to be an explosion in the demand for content. Even if you thought that like the last 18 months was a sharp increase, either it's going to be sustained or it's going to grow from that explosion as we move towards people having more time. Because some people are going to be creative in just enjoying life, and they may need entertainment and content. Everybody's not going to want to, you know, create and produce tangible things or what have you. Or maybe they're going to be in a down period, you know, where they're taking a break, or they're all, you know, enjoying life, or whatever it is they do in the periods of time in between their creations, and they're going to need content. So there's going to be a drastic increase in the demand for content, and I think this is a great opportunity for you to position yourself to be a part of that, and contribute to society, whatever it is that you feel is valuable. All right, so go ahead and do some exploration on your own. Look into it further. It's nothing that you haven't either directly or indirectly heard me say over the last few years. However, you know, moments like this reassure that your elections are sound. You know what I'm saying? So either we're gonna have everything automated and they're able to print everything on a printer. I'm not saying it'll be. I'm not speaking of pros or cons of it, right? We're not talking about is the food gonna be good for you or bad for you right now at this moment. But we're moving that direction regardless of catalyst. Okay? Something to think about. I just want to share with you. Pasha Pyro, Wide at 7. Thank you for tuning. The replay.
Checklist checks reckless when you eat to the point you forget to eat. Every meal's breakfast. Said I was moving too fast, shot was aimed too cash. Where I wanted more access. I'm a spitting access, tornadoes and cash app, graffiti touch screens tap, counting Fed notes, GPS screen track.